At 06:20 local time in Bandar Abbas, a maintenance crew checks the slings on a submarine hanging from a gantry crane, the same routine they've worked all week. Unknown to them, 3 American drone boats have already slipped inside the harbor approaches, low gray hulls buried in diesel haze over wet steel and flat green water. 3 low gray hulls race at 28 knots, spray bursting over each bow. The lead boat eases 2 degrees around a fishing dhow without being told, then settles back into the run in line. The other 2 match the correction inside a second, holding formation to within a yard. The harbor mouth sits 5 miles ahead, flat and hazy under a rising sun, and the submarine pier waits another 8 miles past it. The lead hull crests a swell and drops, bow slicing back into green water. On the far shore, a fuel truck rolls down the mole toward the pier, window open. The driver never glances at the water. At the head of the mole, a canvas-covered gun mount sits with its barrels tilted at the sky. Its crew on the first tee of the morning. No one moves toward it. 29 minutes to go. The 3 hulls thread the outer anchorage lane between a rusted tanker and a cluster of moored dhows. All 3 hold one bearing and not one human hand on a throttle anywhere in this water, and nobody in Bandar Abbas has key to radio. The lead hull slides behind the tanker's stern, disappears for 3 seconds, and reappears on the far side, still pointed at the harbor mouth. The second boat cuts loose enough that its wake slaps the tanker's anchor chain, and the third holds wide, using the dhows as cover until the lane opens again. On the mole, the canvas over the gun mount snaps once in the breeze, and nobody pulls it off. The boats keep coming, hidden by every swell and shown by every trough for less than a heartbeat. This is the home port of Iran's missile boat fleet. The most dangerous thing on the water this morning is a ski boat with a college degree. Watch the low composite hull riding almost flush with the wave tops. This is the Saronic Corsair, an American drone boat built to drive itself to a coordinate and put a payload on it. It's 24 feet long, about the size of a family ski boat, and runs past 35 knots on a single diesel. It can travel more than 1,000 nautical miles on one tank, roughly New York Harbor to Miami offshore. Its deck bay carries up to 1,000 pounds of explosive, a grand piano's weight in warhead. Dead ahead, closing fast, something on the water does have a crew and guns. A gray steel bow swings out of the haze, coming on at speed. On its bridge, a crew from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy. The coastal hit-and-run arm, built for straight ambushes, is running the last leg of a routine sweep. 3 years of watching for smugglers, and nothing this morning has been worth waking anyone up for. The antenna above the bridge turns, and the bow steadies on a line that crosses the Corsair's lane at under 2 miles. Watch the boxy launcher tubes on the aft deck. That is a Houdong-class missile boat, Thondor, in Iranian service. It's Chinese-built, and Iran operates 10 of them for bases along this coast. 205 tons of steel, 127 feet from bow to stern. Its twin diesels are good for the same 35 knots the Corsairs can make. This is a knife fight, not a chase. Each of those tubes holds a Noor anti-ship cruise missile, Iran's homegrown copy of the Chinese Charlie 802, a sea skimmer that runs just under Mach 1. It carries a 360-pound warhead out to about 75 miles, roughly New York City to Philadelphia. Its radar seeker finds a ship by shouting into the darkness and listening for the echo back from the hull. The Type 352 square tie surface search radar on the mast. The Chinese set that finds targets for those missiles can pick up destroyer-sized targets past 20 nautical miles. None of that hardware is the real threat this morning. The real threat is the radio on that bridge. One call puts the Corsairs on every shore battery's plot half an hour before impact, and the mission ends as a training story Iran tells for a decade. The patrol boat's radar keeps turning through Corsair's bearing. Once, twice, a third time. Nothing changes on that bridge. No turn, no signal lamp, nobody running to the rail. If you look here at that radar antenna turning above the bridge, that sweep should have caught them, and it didn't. This set was built to find warships, and everything that makes it good at that job is failing right now. From 30 feet up, the beam skims the sea at a shallow angle. Most of its energy bounces off the wave faces and comes back as one solid smear of returns, sea clutter. The software's entire job is to throw that smear away. A 24-foot hull riding flush with the wave tops looks exactly like the garbage the filter exists to erase. It's like hunting for one dark stone on a gravel driveway at dusk. The problem isn't your eyes, it's that every stone is a gray lump the same size. The radar is doing exactly what it was built to do, and nobody designed it for this. But radar isn't the only sensor on that boat. On the bridge wing, a lookout raises his binoculars and starts working the water in slow, disciplined arcs. Near to far, left to right, exactly the way he was trained. The glasses pass straight across the Corsair's position. A low gray hull between wave tops offers him maybe 1 second of silhouette in this hard glare. The arc keeps moving. 300 miles down the Gulf, in a control room in Bahrain, one US Navy operator is watching this moment through the pack's shared picture. One sailor supervises all 3 hulls, holding approval authority instead of a steering wheel. The Pentagon's term for it is human on the loop, not driving, just able to slam the brakes. He has an abort track loaded. One command turns the boat south and saves them for another morning. If that lookout gets his 1 second of silhouette, Iran spends the next decade studying whatever it pulls out of its own harbor. He looks at the geometry and he lets them run. Without a command from anywhere, the lead Corsair eases wide of the Houdong's path, and the other 2 follow, one after the other. Throttles drop and wakes flatten. The 3 hulls hold silent as 200 tons of armed patrol boat passes inside a mile. Check out the small sensor mast on the Corsair's spine. The entire decision lived inside that mast. It carries a daylight camera, a thermal imager, and a classifier chip that does all its thinking on board. There's no transmitter anywhere on it. A 127-foot steel hull with hot diesel stacks stands out against a cool morning sea like a bonfire. The chip tagged it as a patrol craft 5 or 6 miles out, long before any lookout on the Houdong could pick out a low composite hull out of the wave tops. It's like standing in a dark backyard watching a lit kitchen window. You see everything inside, and the man at the sink sees his own reflection. The Houdong motors home for breakfast. That detour cost the Corsairs 90 seconds. The window they're chasing doesn't move. Miles ahead, past the inner mole, the thing these boats came for hangs from a crane. Hoses, grinders, sparks off a hull fitting. The maintenance crew is still at work under a submarine hanging clear of the water, close enough to touch the keel. Look at the black hull hanging in the slings, barely 90 feet, shorter than a basketball court. That is a Ghadir-class midget submarine, tiny, even by submarine standards. About 117 tons and a crew of 7. Its top speed barely touches 10 knots, and it carries 2 533mm torpedo tubes for Vulture heavyweight torpedoes. Those run more than 6 miles underwater at roughly 40 knots before a 485-pound warhead impacts a ship's hull. Its whole job is to lie on the shallow floor of the Strait of Hormuz and wait. Something worth 1,000 of it passes overhead. A snake under a porch step. Except this morning the snake is hanging from a crane. A submarine out of the water is the only kind that can't hide. 8 miles from the pier, 20 minutes to go, and the Iranian air defense net is wide awake. US Navy Super Hornets have been working the coastline to the south since dawn, and every crew on this shoreline is standing at its post with the safeties off. On the ridge above the harbor, the big Gamma ray turns through the boat's bearing every few seconds. The 3 hulls run straight through its coverage in full morning light, and the coast stays quiet. If one pair of eyes up there looks down instead of up, all 3 boats end the morning as target practice. Check that rotating radar array on the ridge. It just swept over the boats, and the operators got nothing useful from it. The Gamma 3D early warning radar is the long-range eye of Iran's air defense. 3-dimensional means it measures direction, distance, and altitude at the same time. Think of a tape measure that also tells you which shelf the object sits on. From 1,000 feet above sea level, it can pick fighter-class targets out of the sky about 280 miles away, Philadelphia to Boston, and it can track 100 of them at once. What hides the Corsairs from it is nothing fancy. The lowest beam starts about a half a degree above the horizon, and everything under that beam gets thrown out with the ground clutter. By 100 miles downrange, that floor sits more than a mile above the sea. So a boat at 0 feet sits underneath every beam for the entire approach. It's like a porch floodlight aimed at the sky. It lights up every bird for a mile and never touches the raccoon walking under it. But south of the coast, one Iranian scope has just picked up something real, and it's American. An air defense controller gets a clean track, an American MQ-9 Reaper drone holding a lazy racetrack just inside missile range, altitude steady, heading steady. It's the exact fight this crew has trained for their entire careers. They move fast and clean. A canister on a truck-mounted launcher erupts, booster flame, a ring of dust hammered off the ground. The missile shoves near vertical, then tips over to chase the Reaper down. The boom rolls across the battery a heartbeat later. Just over a minute after launch, high over the Gulf, the Reaper dodges the bullet by a near miss. The MQ-9 Reaper is a 36-foot American drone with a 60-foot wingspan, built to watch and strike from above 25,000 feet for more than 20 hours. It cruises around 230 miles per hour and can carry Hellfire missiles or bombs. Today it carries something more valuable: Iranian attention. See that canister launcher on the truck? That's a Cordat-15 firing a Sayyad-3, Iran's long-range surface-to-air missile system. The fight it just lost is a real one. The battery's radar can pick up fighter-sized targets more than 90 miles out and take the shot at just under 50. It goes from road march to ready to fire in about 5 minutes. Professional numbers by anyone's standard. The Sayyad-3 claws upward on steering commands from the ground. Flying to an intercept point, the fire control computer recalculates every second. It can reach targets above 80,000 feet, and the Reaper is loitering at a third of that. Then its own radar seeker finds the Reaper by shouting into the sky and listening for the echo. It closes at nearly Mach 4 with a roughly 440-pound fragmentation warhead built to disable aircraft rather than punch armor. The Reaper has almost no room to evade. The array can fight several targets at once, but every one of them has to be in the sky. The crew watches its missile rain into the Gulf. The actual attack is at 0 feet, underneath everything this system can see. The bouncer just caught somebody on the roof, and the front door is standing wide open. And here's what that battery crew won't learn for a long time. Nobody flies a lazy racetrack inside a Cordat-15's reach by accident. The strike planners wanted every radar operator on this coast staring at altitude this morning. Iran's best missile crew just spent a multi-million-dollar interceptor winning the fight American strike planners put on their calendar. For 30 years, the Gulf math ran one direction: the guy in sandals with a $30,000 missile against a billion-dollar warship. This morning, the US Navy is the guy in sandals, and it brought 3. 3 minutes later, the boats, now 6 miles from the pier, go blind. The lead Corsair satellite fix goes fuzzy, then drops out. Within seconds, all 3 hulls have lost GPS lock. See the jamming antennas on the truck parked above the harbor? A truck-mounted GNSS jammer is doing this. GNSS is the umbrella name for satellite navigation, American GPS included. Iran has salted these along this shoreline for years, and it's jamming, not spoofing. It isn't feeding boats a lie, it's drowning out the truth. A GPS signal arrives from a satellite 12,000 miles up and has an absurdly faint whisper, down to the trillionths of a watt by the time it reaches the boat. A truck putting out a few hundred watts on the same frequency drowns out every receiver across this basin. Without a fresh fix, each boat's inertial system has to count its own steps in the dark. That count drifts a little every minute, and 10 minutes of drift can walk a 1,000-pound warhead into the wrong pier. The answer isn't a stronger antenna. The boats already know what this coastline looks like. The camera turret on each boat you see here swivels to the shoreline, and small course corrections follow. A degree here, a degree there. The 3 tracks stay glued to the plan as if the satellites never went away. Watch the camera turret holding on the breakwater. That's how the boats navigate with nothing overhead. The planners loaded a digital map of this harbor before launch. The breakwater corner, the outer mole, the crane line, the channel buoys. The turret and the lower power navigation radar take bearings on those landmarks several times a second. The boat folds every new bearing back onto the map, and 2 cross bearings on known landmarks pin position to inside a car length at a mile of range. It's like driving home with a dead phone. You don't need the map app on a road you know. You turn at the gas station, then at the white church, same as every night. Iran's jamming layer just found the worst possible opponent, a boat that already knows the harbor. 5 miles from the pier, the flat satellite panel on the back of each deck falls silent. One last status burst, then not a milliwatt from any antenna on any of the 3 boats. It's not by accident. That silence is the plan. Inside the last 5 miles, the whole mission lives on board. A coastal direction finder needs a live signal to take a bearing on, and 0 watts is 0 bearings. It also means the sailor in Bahrain just signed the only signature that matters. From here in, no abort exists. If a tanker drags anchor across a lane, no voice on earth can reach these boats to tell them. He approved the terminal run knowing exactly that. It's like walking your kid to the corner and watching him cross the last block alone. He knows the way. 5 miles to run. The silent hulls converge on one steel gantry. Between them and it, one man on the mole with a rifle and a radio. The boat's splitting to hit the pier complex from 3 directions through the anchorage. Somewhere back at that split, each hull burned past the last waypoint with enough diesel left to reach friendly water. Check the payload bay where the rescue deck used to be. Weeks earlier in the Gulf of Oman, a Corsair from the Navy's Task Force 59 used that same deck to pull 2 downed American aircrew out of the water. These 3 boats gave that deck up. On a Corsair built to come home, roughly a third of the loaded weight is return fuel and recovery gear. Strip it out, and the warhead grows by the same amount. A 1,000-mile boomerang rebuilt as a 500-mile dart. Why 3 lanes? Because of what happens in the first second after the first explosion. Watch the stern drives biting into the water. The boat on the shortest lane throttles back and goes flat, while the longest lane boat digs in at a hard 35 knots. 3 different speeds on 3 different legs, chosen by no one riding any of them. The math is simple. The 3 final runs measure roughly 4.8, 5.2, and 5.6 nautical miles. Different on purpose. Run all 3 at the exact same speed and they arrive spaced about 90 seconds apart. The first blast wakes every gun on the mole, and boats 2 and 3 swim into an alerted harbor. So the plan flips it. Longer path burned at higher throttle, shorter path eased back, and every hull reaches its aim point inside a 10-second window. Artillerymen have run this trick for 80 years and gave it a name: time on target. Every round landing in the same breath, no matter where it started. 3 fuses with 3 different lengths, all lit at the same moment, trimmed to burn down together. Even the 90 seconds lost at the harbor mouth is in there, paid back a knot at a time. There's a price for that higher throttle on flat morning water. 3 white wakes, drawn straight at the pier, visible to anyone who happens to look down instead of up. Halfway down the second lane, a fisherman on a moored dhow looks up from his tee as a low gray shape hisses past 50 yards off his rail. No one at any wheel he can see. By the time he decides it was real, the wake is already fading toward the pier. See the gantry crane straddling the pier? The whole morning is aimed at that one piece of steel. Iran runs the entire Hormuz-facing midget submarine fleet through this yard. About 14 Ghadir hulls in one whole force. Each one needs a hull-out inspection about once a year. Seals, batteries, shafts, coatings. That can only happen where there's enough gantry lift to hoist a 117-ton hull clear of the water. On this whole coast, Bandar Abbas is the only place that can do it. It's the only mechanics lift in a town full of trucks. Break the lift and every truck ends up parked for good. The submarine in the slings is one hull. The lift and the shops behind it are 13 more. That's why the aim points are structure, not just steel in a sling. And the trade runs obscenely in America's favor. A Corsair is flat composite panels and 1 diesel off a Louisiana production line. Low 7 figures a boat. The line back home is ramping towards hundreds a year. Set against that, a yard worth hundreds of millions and years to rebuild. The US Navy is trading pawns to take a rook. On the mole, a guy in sandals with a rifle slung has spent his whole shift scanning the sky like everyone else. He squints into the glare the morning sun lays across the water, and then his eye catches that one white line cutting across that glare. 2 more appear beside it. The radio comes off his belt. He starts talking, fast, calm, by the book. If his call beats the boats by even a minute, the ZU-23-2 at the head of the mole gets 30 seconds of aimed fire at slow, unarmored hulls. That hand-aimed pair of 23mm cannon pours nearly 2,000 rounds a minute out to 1.5 miles. A fire hose made of steel. 30 seconds is more than it needs. If you look here at the blunt bow of the lead boat, everything about to happen has already been decided. 2 tons of boat at 35 knots hits like a loaded pickup into a carport post at 40. Enough to cave in steel plate, nowhere near enough to drop a crane. But the boat was never the weapon. The weapon is the charge riding in that bay. The fuse fires the instant the bow touches steel. Blast at the waterline against the gantry's legs. The waterline is the cruelest place on Earth to set off a charge. Water doesn't compress, so the blast can't simply vanish downward into the sea. The water shoves the punch back up into the gantry legs, forcing the force into the columns that hold the submarine's weight. Those legs were built to lift 117 tons of steel. not eat 1,000 pounds of explosive at the knees. On the pier, the sentry's call breaks from a loudspeaker, and the crew chief doesn't ask a single question. He yells one word, and every man drops his tools and sprints for the seawall. 300 yards, the canvas comes off the twin barrels and the ZU starts screaming. The first burst tears the water apart 20 yards behind the lead boat. Swinging a hand-crank mount onto a crossing target at 35 knots takes a lead nobody on this mole has ever practiced against a hull this small. He corrects. The second burst walks a line of white geysers across the lead boat's wake, close enough to soak the deck. 200 yards. The sentry's call beat the boats by half the minute the gun needed. There is no third correction. 2 more wakes now on 2 different bearings, and the barrels can only chase one. At 0651, the lead Corsair buries itself into the gantry at the waterline. Flash first. Then the crack rolls across the harbor a half second behind. The fuel truck driver feels it through his seat. Inside the same narrow window, boats 2 and 3 hammer into the covered shops on either side of the pier. The barrels are still hunting the second wake when it closes. The gantry folds, and the submarine drops into the wreckage of its own cradle. A single column of black smoke climbs over Bandar Abbas into the morning sun. Task Force 59 made its name pulling Americans out of this water. This morning, its boats wrote a different page. The first combat strike ever carried out by American drone boats. Not one American was within 300 miles of the blast. Iran spent 40 years building a fortress that watches the sky. How do you defend a harbor from a navy that can lose 100 boats without losing crew? If you enjoyed this video, then watch our breakdown of the last time Iran's Navy challenged the US Navy head-on. Bye for now.